Hi, welcome back to Executive Exhale. My name is Tammy, and I am an executive wellness coach, consultant, and I help leaders really regain their clarity, regain their energy so that they can lead more effectively and live a life that feels a little bit more balanced and less impacted by stress and burnout. So today we're going to dive into something that many high achievers struggle with, and it's something that I struggled with when I was an executive and I still struggle with in my business, and that's the notion of decision fatigue and a sense of overwhelm. So if you're currently feeling mentally exhausted and overburdened by decisions, or like you're spinning in some loop of uncertainty in your life, this episode might just be for you. So before we can actually tackle the notion of decision fatigue and overwhelm, we have to first define it and understand what it actually is. Decision fatigue happens from the sheer volume of decisions that we have to make every day. Women in leadership in particular, especially those that are in the healthcare industry where decisions can literally be life or death at times. This really stands true in terms of a reality that we are experiencing in terms of the stress load and the burden of having to make decisions every day. The constant need to make decisions completely drains our energy and it drains our mental capacity to support ourselves throughout the day. Your brain, just like a muscle, gets tired when it's overused. So what happens is your brain then wants to default to shortcuts. You're either going to start making impulsive decisions or you're going to avoid decisions altogether. Sound familiar? How do you know that you're struggling from decision fatigue? So common signs and symptoms are as follows, and I have struggled from any and all of these at different times in my career and in my life. The first is procrastination. What this means is you avoid making the smallest decisions. What to have for dinner, what to dress, how to do your hair, whether you should shower or not. Those kinds of decisions actually start going out the window. So you'll procrastinate. At work, it might mean putting off that really difficult folder or that really difficult labor relations case that you really don't want to deal with and just putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And you come across as an absentee leader because you're not making decisions. You may feel mentally foggy or an overall sense of overwhelm in the body. So you find yourself having trouble making clear decisions. You might be finding difficulty finding your words. You may find that phrasing doesn't come to you easily, right? And strategic planning is just not something that is readily available to your brain. You might find yourself increasingly more irritable and feeling like the stress is starting to impact your life. For me, that showed up as anger bursts, short-temperedness, especially with my kids and husband, or it would show up as an overall feeling of discontent in the body, or at times in my life, it showed up as official burnout, but also depression, anxiety symptoms, etc. You may find yourself participating in unhealthy coping mechanisms. So think of ordering fast food because you just don't want to decide what to make for dinner. This is literally what happened last night and the night before in our house. And over the course of 2-3 years when I was an exec, especially in the emergency management realm where we were dealing with COVID and other things in the health portfolio that I was working in, that resulted in weight gains for me of the level of 40 and 50 pounds over 2 and 3 years because all I would do is take out because I couldn't decide. I was making decisions all day as an executive and as a leader. The last thing I wanted to do was decide on dinner. And actually didn't even have the energy to make it. So we would just order. And my husband was no different, by the way. We both share those duties. In fact, he cooks more than I do now. And the two of us still struggle with this. The last thing I'm going to say as a sign and symptom is that you have difficulty actually prioritizing tasks or prioritizing your decisions because everything feels urgent to you. And we all know that if everything is urgent, nothing is. So if any of this sounds familiar to you, you likely have decision fatigue and overwhelm playing a game or playing a role rather in your life. Know that you're not alone, right? Leaders, executives, parents, business owners, we all experience this. Every human experiences this at some point or other. So it's really not a matter of if you're going to face decision fatigue and overwhelm, but when you are. And the more important thing I want you to take away from today's episode is the notion of how to manage or how to navigate it as you go forward in this. So one of the biggest reasons that decision fatigue is a thing is due to decision overload. We live in a world where we have to make decisions from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. Everything from what to wear, what to eat, how to drive, what route to take to work, to how to allocate resources in our budget, to strategic planning, to how to deal with that difficult employee, to what strategy to implement next. Like it's just decision after decision after decision, day after day after day. And no matter how big or small these decisions are, they deplete your mental and your psychological capacity to deal with other decisions. And as leaders, it's particularly important because you're constantly navigating risk. You're constantly navigating uncertainty and you're constantly navigating complexity because nothing we do in our workplaces is generally really simple. Some decisions are very simple, but there are others that are very complex and require multi-stakeholder, multi-partner, or multi-departmental, negotiation or conversations before a decision can be made. And all of that adds additional stress to your mental load. The reality is that when stress compounds and goes up in your life, your level of clarity and performance goes down, including resilience. All of that's going to play in mental exhaustion. So now you kind of know what the symptoms are and why it happens, and you're really resonating with what I'm talking about so far. So, okay, Tammy, get to the point. What are some strategies? What are some things? Well, here's a few things that you might want to try in your own life that might help you starting today. The first thing I'm going to say is limit your daily decision load where possible. So you want to reduce decisions in low impact areas of your life. Think Steve Jobs and the black turtleneck. He wore that black turtleneck because it was easy for him to put on in the morning. He didn't have to second think it. He didn't have to try to decide what suit he was going to wear that day. He just knew, put a black turtleneck and jeans and we're good. Just decrease the mental load of decision making by taking the having to wear something different every day out of the decision making matrix. You can also do this for you by maybe having meal planning done on the weekend so that your meals are planned out for the week. That takes that decision of what's for dinner out of the equation. Maybe it's automating your bills so that they don't have to be paid by you, but rather they get paid automatically on a monthly basis through your credit card or through your bank statement. Maybe it's setting up a consistent morning routine that is the same every single day so that you're not having to decide what to have for breakfast or when to make coffee or what route to take to work or whatever. So limit daily decisions where possible. The second thing I want to tell you to do is prioritize what matters most. The reality is that not all decisions carry the same weight. And if you're treating minor choices with major life changes, then of course you're going to be exhausted and overwhelmed. So start categorizing what truly matters to you in that moment. What really requires attention at this point in the game. And then ask yourself what can be delegated, automated, or eliminated altogether. The third thing you might use is the 2-minute and the 5-second rule. Let's break that down. So the 2-minute rule says that if a decision can be made in less than 2 minutes, then make the decision. So if it's a complex decision that requires more time, then maybe that's something you can push off later or schedule or block time for. But if it's less than 2 minutes for you and you have the full authority to make the decision, just make the decision, get it done, and move on to the next thing. The 5-second rule, which is from Mel Robbins from the 5-second rule book, which by the way, I have read, it's actually a pretty decent book and might help you in certain areas of your life. For me, the 5-second rule doesn't work in every area of my life, but it's certainly something to try. And what that is if you're hesitating on something, you want to hack the brain by counting yourself down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like NASA does with rocket ships, so that you actually take action at the end of that 1-0 launch time where your brain talks you out of it. So oftentimes we hesitate on making decisions because an inner critic or a fear or an anxiety or an insecurity will pop up and keep us from fulfilling that decision. So what she's suggesting is if you go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and act, you're acting before your brain puts in the motion to stop you from moving forward, especially in those 2-minute rule decisions where it's a pretty easy thing that you have full control over, or maybe that is a simple decision to make to begin with. Using the 5, 4, 3, 2 rule can really help you with those because you just take action on something that is maybe low risk or has low impact if it doesn't go the way you want it to go. The fourth thing is set boundaries around decision making. Decision fatigue will always worsen when you're always available, always. So what you want to do is carve out time for decision making, for people to reach you on decisions that need to be made, for example. Block time for that deep work and protect it. So if you need to do strategic thinking or strategic planning, or you have to do creative work, then you want to block that time out so you're not constantly, incessantly needing to be accessible for decision-making 24/7 out of the day. Maybe have parameters around what decisions need to come to you in an urgent manner so that people respect the boundaries that you put up. Setting up clear boundaries is one of the biggest issues that my clients have when it comes to managing stress and overwhelm and burnout. If you have boundaries, but you don't respect them and those around you don't respect them, then you will burn out and you will have issues with overwhelm. So this is a really important point. The fifth thing that really draws me in, because this is something I'm passionate about, is engaging in mindful breath work or mindfulness and guided heart breath sessions potentially, depending on the level of decision fatigue, overwhelm, and burnout that you're experiencing. These things were game changers for me. I don't think I can over exemplify. There's a reason why I offer these modalities to my clients now, because they helped me overcome and recover from my own burnout experience. So overwhelm always shrinks when you make space for clarity. And you can only get clarity when you get out of flight, fight, fawn, freeze. Because when you're in your sympathetic nervous system, your flight, fight, fawn, freeze system, so means that your cortisol is running high and your creativity level in the brain gets dialed down, because your brain goes, hey, whoa, whoa, we're surviving right now. We don't have time to be creative. Right now, we have to think about what danger is coming at us and how we're going to respond to it. So using your breath to hack your neurological system and connecting with your heart energetics to hack into your neurological system is in fact a fantastic way to increase creativity, which will enhance your clarity as well as a leader in your decision making. A simple way you can do this is to just check in with yourself before you have to make a big decision by breathing in for a count of 4 in, 5 out through the nose. Because when you breathe through the nose, the air going past the olfactory nerve in the brain tells the brain we are safe, we are calm. When you breathe through your mouth, that activates the sympathetic, the flight, fight, fawn, freeze. When you breathe through your nose, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system and calms you and brings you into your rest and digest system. So when you do nasal breaths for 7, 8, 10 cycles, you will tap into that clarity, that calm system, and get out of flight, fight, fawn, and freeze, which is your sympathetic. I have a PDF down below that you can click on the link to. It's a PDF that I give to all my clients, and it's a mindfulness for the high performing exec. It has some tips and tricks there and some breathwork patterns you could implement into your day to make it really simple. They're not time consuming at all. They can be easily put into your day and help you to achieve the clarity you need and to reset your nervous system when you're feeling that overwhelm start to kick in. The sixth point and the last point I'm going to make here today is give yourself permission to make good enough decisions. We often get stuck in the myth of perfection, right? We feel like the perfect decision must be made at all times. The reality is decisions don't need to be perfect. They need to be made. We don't make progress as leaders or in our programs or with our organizations unless we continue to move forward, regardless of whether they're perfect or not. And this was a hard one for me. I remember when I did my MA program back in 2013 to 2015 with Royal Rose, I remember we were doing a group project and my perfectionism was on full display. I was nitpicking and kind of being crabby and moody in the room about something we were doing as a group that we had to present. And one of my colleagues, a good friend and colleague of mine, Nikki, she's great. She said to me, Tammy, breathe. And can you just learn to embrace the good enough? Because, honey, you got to learn to embrace the good enough here. Like, this does not need to be perfect. And what's really cool about that phrase, and I still think of Nikki every time I say it, is that stuck in my head from that time on. So for the last 10 years, anytime I started to feel overwhelmed or anytime I felt that perfectionistic sense come through, I always ask myself, okay, Tammy, why do we need to be perfect about this? Can we just embrace the good enough? And I have to say this now to my children who are now in high school and post-secondary as they get perfectionistic in their assignments. It's like, you know what? Let's just embrace the good enough and move forward. It's an awesome thing to do. And it gives you permission, right? When you release that perfectionism, it gives you permission to release all of the accountability and all of the responsibility of being perfect as well, which is a huge burden to relieve yourself of. I'll say that decision fatigue is a real thing, but I'm here to tell you that it is very manageable. The key to this is awareness, right? It's about recognizing the signs and reducing those unnecessary decisions or choices on a daily basis and prioritizing and giving yourself space and grace to make decisions that may not always be perfect. When you build these kinds of strategies into your day-to-day life, you reduce the cognitive load. As a result, you're going to reclaim energy. You're going to reclaim time. You're going to reclaim focus, and you're going to reclaim clarity. Throughout your day, going forward, now that you've watched this video, hopefully to the end here, I want to invite you to notice something. I want you to invite you to notice where can you simplify in your life, whether it be at work or at home. What decisions can be streamlined? What decisions can be delegated? And what decisions can you completely eliminate from your life? And above that, I would say create space for your own well-being. This is not just about self-care. This is about well-being so that you can maintain not only their performance at work, but a feeling like your life isn't taking you over. If this resonated with you at all, make sure that you share it with a friend or a colleague who might be experiencing decision fatigue themselves. And it helps get this channel out to other leaders just like you who are struggling with all sorts of leadership challenges that I talk about on this channel and all sorts of wellness issues that we all struggle with. And if you want to explore more strategies that are more tailored to your requirements, your issues, your situation, reach out. I have links down below. You can go to www.executiveexhale.com, look me up, see what I have on offer. I have breathwork sessions you can click onto. There's also coaching packages. I have a number of things, a number of ways that I can support you. Just reach out and see what's possible for you. Thanks again for being here. I really do appreciate you taking the time to watching this content or listening to this content today. Until next time, folks, stay grounded, stay inspired, and remember to exhale.